Okay. Let's see how we go. They said, come on a couple of minutes early, get yourself ready. Let's see if, where we are, there's a slight delay. I wonder if that is happening on Facebook, because that's a bit awkward. Haha. Just waiting to kick off the Sunday showcase if anybody is watching this. We're not quite ready to go. The kickoff is at, I'm saying 4 o'clock, but 6 o'clock. So in 3 minutes. I don't know if anyone's seeing this because I think I have a slight, I remember seeing a notification about delay in my streaming software. So let me just see if anybody, it's saying I've got 25 people. Bum, bum. But it's more the delay I'm concerned about. Where are we? We need to go. Bum, bum. Groups. Where's my groups? Groups. Excuse me. Christine, thank you very much. So we're just ready to work off. Christine and Christy. South Carolina, lovely. So you can see me? Can you hear me okay? I don't know what the delay, if there is a delay, you see. So sometimes you get wee kind of time delay on these things. So if anyone can just confirm if they can hear me okay, that would be lovely. A couple more minutes before we kick off. Bum, bum, bum. I don't think I'm on the Socially Distant Fest site quite yet for the... They're saying 5 minutes. Very well. Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Christine. Sorry if I look like I'm looking at my phone. It's because I am. I need to remember this camera's up here now. I've literally just got some new equipment into the studio, a new camera, so I need to remember to look at it. My old one was a bit more centered, but the tripod hasn't arrived yet, so I'm having to keep it slightly off to the side because I don't want it to fall because it's a really expensive camera. We can hear you. Thank you, Bert. Lovely. So I'm going to be brutally honest. I don't know what quite happens here because this is part of the showcase. We're kicking off and opening the showcase today. And I'm presuming an admin will tell me to go. I don't know, though. So it's all very exciting. It really is. So we'll just wait. It's another minute until the hour. And we'll see what's happening. Excuse me. Bum-ba-dum. Okay, well, that is the hour. So let's see if we get a note from an admin, or has an admin actually already confirmed? I don't see one here unless I'm not recognizing the name. So I'll just give it a moment, folks, to make sure. As I said, I don't know if they need to announce anything first, or if we just go for it and have some fun. Got a bit of a tickle in my throat today for some reason. It's a very dry studio I'm in. Okay, I'm not seeing an admin notification here. So I'm wondering if I just go for it and we just we just go and have some fun and see what happens. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if there's a notification going on Facebook before we kick off here. I don't see anything quite showing up. So I am going to begin. He says very warily begin. Because as I say, I'm not seeing anything coming up and I just don't know how much of a delay there is. But You know, it's 1601. It's 1601 in Calgary. It's obviously 1801 when the actual festival kicks off. So let's just go for it, folks. Good afternoon. My name is Calum Lykan. I am a Scottish storyteller, and this is part of the Sunday showcase for the Socially Distant Fest. So I want to thank everyone for joining. And just to confirm, let's just get a double check. Can everyone see me and hear me so we can begin safely and soundly? Just if someone gives me a thumbs up or something again, just to make sure that we're all okay, that everything is coming through lovely, that would be amazing, and we'll get started properly. I'm seeing about 36 people here. So I think we're pretty good to go. But as I say, I just haven't had that admin approval that normally goes through. Waiting with bated breath, folks. Yes, okay, Karen, loud and clear. Right, excellent, guys. Do you know what? We're just going to go for it, and hopefully, you know, people are hearing me, people are seeing me. As far as I'm concerned, that means it's showtime. So I am Calum Lykan. I am a Scottish storyteller. This is my profession. I travel, or did travel, the world doing storytelling all over, and I'm now based up in Calgary in Canada. So we are part of the Socially Distant Fest. Today, this is their Sunday showcase. So there's a whole wealth of performers coming up after myself. But for the next 50 minutes, it's me, and it's all about me. Ta-da! So one of the things that we always like to say, and just remind everyone, sorry, just a big message came through, is that although this is like a free event for you to view, there are tip jars available with all the performers. If you have a look at the sort of information about our show, you'll see the tip jars for PayPal and other things. And if you enjoy the shows, please, if you've got a couple of bucks to spare, whatever, do tip the performers. It just gives us an idea of we're doing the right thing for you. Because basically, a lot of us are out of work. That's the God's honest truth of it, folks. I think my next gig is the middle of September, is the next booked event because of everything that's going on. However, I do also offer a special deal. If you donate $15 or more to myself, now this is a new camera, so I just need to see how this is going to work. Are you going to autofocus for me? Oh, it's not going to autofocus, the cheeky thing. Well, what I'm holding up here, folks, is a copy of Calum Lykan's Scottish Bedtime Stories. It's a digital download card for my CD. So please, if you donate over $15, basically make sure your email's there, and I will send you a copy of that digital CD. I don't use your information for anything other than just making sure you get that gift. But bear in mind, the other performers will have other things as well, and we've all got tip jars. So do sit back, enjoy for the next 4-5 hours, I believe, for the Socially Distant Sunday showcase. But let's begin with some stories. Now, I come and do a lot of different things. I do a lot of Scottish stories, and I also do a lot of Viking and Norse mythology. And I was doing a story, it was earlier in the week, and I had a gentleman, now I'm going to get his name wrong. It was either Aidan or Aaron. I should have checked that before coming on. And he was telling me how much he loves these stories because he tells his son them at night. So I thought I would tell another one to kick off, like change it up a wee bit. You know, you're expecting Scottish, let's go Viking. The Scots and the Norse have got a huge connection. So to be honest, they're one and the same almost at times. But let's get started. Now, you all know the Viking mythology. And the reason I say that is because Marvel movies have kind of introduced it to us all. We're all aware of what's going on. You know, we've seen Odin, we've seen Loki, and we've seen Thor on the big screen. And it gives you a little kind of very stylized feel for the Norse mythology, Asgard, and all the heroes. But I need to make one thing very clear, folks. Thor is not what you see on Marvel movies. He is, well, he's not an Adonis. He is, well, he's not Australian. He doesn't have blonde hair, and he's certainly not Chris Hemsworth. The real Thor is a bear of a man, a big, rugged, wild character. And basically it said that he's got wild red hair, a big bushy beard, and eyes that burn like fire. And Thor's whole thing is about killing giants. With his hammer, Mjolnir, he travels the realms and literally fights. He is the protector of the gods, it's said. And this is a story about Thor. And it's a story about how Thor, well, even the great thunderer gets a wee bit bored with killing giants. So he decides one day he wants to do something a wee bit more, a wee bit different. And he gets it into his head that he wants to go fishing. So Thor realizes that there's a prize that he's been after for a while, and fishing will get him that prize. But the problem is he needs a master fisher. He needs somebody who can actually help him achieve his goals. And there is only one fisherman of that renown. And it is none other than one of those giants that Thor doesn't like. Hymnir, the greatest fisherman in all the realms. Well, Thor realizes the problem with this is he can't just turn up at Hymnir's because he's Thor. Everybody knows Thor. So he decides he has to disguise himself. And he comes up with the plan that he'll dress himself in silks and satins, he'll braid his beard with ribbons, comb back his wild hair, put it in a nice ponytail. He'll dress himself up neatly so that he looks like any other merchant that would be traveling the realms. And that's what Thor does. He gives himself a good scrub, brushes his hair, braids it, puts ribbons in his beard, puts on silks and satins and fancy clothes. And when he steps back and looks at himself, well, not even Thor recognizes himself. Finally, he takes Mjolnir and stiffs it into his tunic, and then he's ready to go. And he heads out of Asgard across the realms, heading towards Jotunheim, the home of the giants. Now, it's a few days across land and a few days across sea he travels, and then back onto land in Jotunheim, traveling. And he's heading towards the coast or along the coast now, and all of a sudden he sees it in the distance, and he sees a wee cottage just by the sea. Surrounding that cottage is a huge herd of cows, and he knows this is Hymnir's home. Because Hymnir is not just the best fisherman in the realms. He also has prize cattle, which he loves dearly. So Thor, dressed as a trader, as a gentleman, goes up to the door and knocks. And the door is answered by a rather gruff, rather moody-looking giant who sees this tiny creature on his door. And of course, Thor simply says, I'm a traveler that is lost. I seek shelter for the evening. Now, the laws of the land say that if a traveler comes to your door seeking shelter, you need to let them in. Hymnir is aware of this, but he just doesn't want to. He doesn't like company. He doesn't like anything other than fishing and his cattle. So he does everything to dissuade this puny-looking creature. I've got no room for you. And of course, Thor's like, it doesn't matter. I'll sleep anywhere. Oh, it's a cold, cold cottage. And Thor's like, I don't care. I've got my robes. And I've got no food for you. And he does everything. The cows will wake you. This'll happen. This'll happen. And Thor, he just keeps dismissing every challenge because he knows he needs to stay the night. And eventually Hymnir, despondent and miserable, acknowledges this. He invites the man in and shows him to a cold, dark bedroom with a stone slab to sleep on. And he says to the man, this is your room. You'll no get much sleep. It's a cold cottage. There's nothing to eat. The cows will keep you up all night. And then in the morning, I'll probably wake you as I'm heading off fishing bright and early. And this is what Thor had been waiting on. He'd been waiting on any sign of fishing, and he leaps on it. Oh, fishing! I would love to join you. And now Hymner has another problem, because he hates people and he hates company, and he certainly doesn't want to take anyone out fishing. So now he spends the next couple of minutes trying to dissuade this man, but no rhyme or reason will put him off. So Hymner acknowledges it, and both parties go to their beds. But Hymner sits there for a while thinking, well, I can't get rid of him, but you know what I'll do? I'll just get up even earlier. I'll get up and I'll head out, and basically, before he's even awake, I'll have milked the cows and I'll be away on the ocean fishing. Well, that's what he does. He gets up bright and early. He sneaks out his cottage, not making a noise. He sneaks round the side of his cottage. He sits down to start milking the cows, and he looks over his shoulder. And he can't believe his eyes, because there he is. This genteel-looking fella just leaning against the fence, waiting for him. I'm here for the fishing, says Thor. And Hymner is furious. He's just like, how am I going to get rid of this man? And then it dawns on him, looking at how well dressed this character is. He points towards the dung pile, the huge pile of manure at the side of the house. And he says, well, you'll need some bait. Away, rummage over there and see what you can find. Well, Thor sees him point, but he doesn't quite register where he's pointing. He just sees him kind of gesturing to the side, and Thor thinks he's actually gesturing to his cattle. So Thor walks over and he looks at this prize herd, and he sees the biggest, meanest looking bull. Thor pulls out his sword and with one hack takes the bull's head off, and then picks up the bloody head, walks back over to the giant and says, I think I've got my bait. This should do. Well, that's it for Hymner. He's lost it. He is fuming and raging, but he knows he can't harm this man on land. He knows that the laws forbid it, but he's just killed one of his prize beasts. But there's no laws about doing it on the water. So now Hymner's delighted to have this man join him, because he's thinking, we'll get out deep enough, and over the side he goes. So now giant and man walk down to the beachhead. They get in the boat, and Thor says, I'll row. I'll take that. You know, I'm your guest. And Hymner laughs, looking at this puny creature, but then he can't believe what he's seeing, because as Thor grabs the oars and starts to row, the wee boat's bouncing across the waves in the water, and soon enough they're at Hymner's favourite fishing ground. And he says so. It's time to stop. We're here. But Thor looks at him and says, no, let's go out a wee bit further. There's bound to be better fish out a bit further. And he keeps rowing, and the waves get a wee bit higher. The heavens get a wee bit darker. The boat starts to get a wee bit more rocked and pitched. But Thor keeps rowing, and Hymner's getting a wee bit worried. Stop, we're going too far. But Thor's like, no, a wee bit further, a wee bit further. And they keep rowing and rowing and rowing. And soon enough, they're now out in the deep water of the waves, rocking and rolling. The boat is pitching back and forth, and Hymner's panicking. He's never been out this far, and there's for a very good reason. And he cries out to this man, stop, you must stop. We're out in deep water. We're out in the realm of the world serpent. And that is when Thor stops, when he hears those words, because that is the prize he's after. Jormungandr, the great world serpent that encompasses the whole of the earth. This is a great beast that's said to be so long, it circles the planet and it bites onto its own tail. Well, Thor is after this prize. So he looks around the boat. He grabs the biggest hook. He grabs the bull's head and rams the hook into it. He grabs the hardest, sturdiest rod and the thickest twine, and he throws the bull's head into the water. And down, down, down it sinks. Down in the depths of the ocean, Jormungandr is sound asleep when one of his great nostrils start to pick up the scent of the blood from the bull's head drifting through the water. It opens its great eyes, and in front of it, it sees it. It sees its supper. With one great movement and one crunching bite, it bites down on the bull's head, and the great hook that Thor has sunk through it wedges into the bridge of its mouth. The great beast roars and bellows and thrashes about under the waves in agony as the hook goes deeper and deeper. And above the water, Thor, standing in the boat, he feels the tug on his line, and he knows he's got his prize. And now we have the most monumental battle. God against world serpent, struggling, fighting, the serpent thrashing and diving and getting pulled up and diving, Thor winding slowly, and Hymnir, the giant, panicking. Above his head, thunder and lightning in the heavens, the waves bucking and rolling, and he can see a great mass slowly rising out of the water, and he is terrified. He knows what is happening, and as he looks at the man, and as Thor's muscles rip through the clothes, as his beard and hair become loose with the struggle, for the first time ever, Hymnir realizes who is standing in his boat, none other than the thunderer Thor. And as the great serpent's head comes up above the water, bloodshot eyes, teeth as long as a man's body, a breath of 1,000 corpses filling the air, Hymnir cannot take it, and he faints in the boat. But Thor is winding and ready to fight. As he's bracing with the rod, he reaches into his tunic, pulling out Mjolnir, ready to kill the great beast. But just at that moment, Hymnir regains consciousness. He sees the great world serpent looming above him, and he pulls out his knife and starts hacking at Thor's line, the only thing he can do. And as the knife cuts through the line and Thor falls back into the boat as the pressure's released, he sits up and he sees the great head of the beast sinking slowly beneath the waves, disappearing, sinking down to the depths where it will stay for the rest of its days. And Thor sits up, anger, rage. He's lost his prize, the one thing he was after. He'd cleared a space on the wall for that head, and his anger, his rage is there. The heavens are filling with thunder and lightning even more. He's grabbing Mjolnir, and he needs to vent. And there's only one thing he can vent on with one mighty swing of his hammer. Hymnir is sent flying through the air and splashing into the waves, where his dead body sinks down to the bottom of the sea. And Thor is angry. His rage is there. He's not sated. And he rows back across the waves, back towards the beach. When he gets to the beach, his anger, it's still there. He goes up to Hymnir's cottage and destroys the cottage. He kills every animal, every beast he finds from that herd. But still his anger is there, but there is nothing left to vent it on. So Thor turns and starts to walk. He walks down the coast, where he takes his boat across the ocean until he gets back to his lands. Walking through his lands, the heavens are still filled with thunder and lightning. And as he gets close to the walls of Asgard, the gods all know that Thor is angry. They see the signs in the heavens, and they stay out of his way. And Thor goes into Asgard, straight to his chambers, and it's said that he doesn't leave his chambers for about 2 weeks. And throughout those weeks, the heavens are filled with the thunder and lightning until one day they all wake up and it's blue skies, and they know that Thor is no longer angry. And Thor lost his great prize. He never faced Jormungandr until the fateful day of Ragnarok. But there is one other thing that Thor never ever did from that day on. And I advise you, if you ever encounter Thor and you're on your way down to the river or taking a boat out to sea, heed these words. Never ever invite Thor fishing. Thank you. So, ladies and gents, we'll move on with another story. I'm just keeping my eyes on the time because I am... Oh, hey, Taylor. I didn't see that. See you there. I'm a terrible man for keeping time. So I'm desperately trying to do that because I get carried away and I have too much fun and I just let things flow. And I don't generally set up a set because basically I like to kind of decide on the stories on the day. So I think what we'll do is we'll head back to Scotland now, and we'll head to Edinburgh, and we'll give you a little bit of a historic tale of Edinburgh. If you've ever been to Edinburgh, thank you, Stephanie. It is a beautiful ancient city. I mean, it's stunning. It's got over 3,000 years worth of settlement history on the castle alone. And Edinburgh's had a very tumultuous history. And throughout the eras, it's had problems and issues, but none so kind of in the 1500s when, oh, now let me just think, 1513, don't quote me on that, I might be slightly wrong, when the Battle of Flodden Fields happened. That was a very kind of interesting time period which influenced Edinburgh greatly. You see, what happened at Flodden Fields is we charged down there and we thought, hey, we're going to beat the English, and we ran down to Flodden Fields so quick that we forgot a few things like cannons and common sense and tactics. And what basically happened is when we faced the English, we decided to charge at them up a hill. They had their cannons and basically they obliterated the Scots. And the first thing that Edinburgh knew about this was when they saw a group of Scots running up to the Highlands shouting, "The English are coming, run." But Edinburgh couldn't run. So they did the next best thing. The council gathered and they came up with a plan. We'll protect the city. We'll build a wall. And they put into action the Flodden Wall. A wall which they built around Edinburgh. It took 50 years to build. All the time they're looking over their shoulders, worried that the English are going to arrive. But with the 50 years of building, the English didn't appear. Well, the funny story about that is actually the English did appear 3 or 4 years after the Flodden Wall was completed. And they arrived basically to see a wall and wondered, whoa, where did this come from? But they were even more surprised because the wall was a disaster. It was such an expensive wall. The whole thing was falling apart in areas. So when the English invaded Edinburgh, they basically walked through a hole in the wall, unanswered, took the city without a single drop of bloodshed. So there you go. There's just a brief bit of Edinburgh history. However, that wall, the Flodden Wall, encased the city 1/2 mile by 1/4 of a mile. It was a tightly packed city where at one point 10,000 people went up to 35,000, well, between 35 and 60,000 people, it was said, all crammed in a mile, 1/2 mile by 1/4 mile, a tiny area to live. So we built up into what is now known as the towering tenements, or the first skyscrapers. But it was a place of filth and degradation, raw sewage in the streets. It was just a horrible place to live. So it's no matter, it makes common sense that when basically the time came and people had the money, the rich of the city turned around and said, you know what, we want out. And they started building what is known as the new town. And the new town in Edinburgh is a big, fancy, very upper class area. Still to this day looks very posh compared to the kind of slightly dingy historical old town. But our story starts with a couple of lads from the old town, Malachi and Angus. I was about to say Hamish, that's my dog. Angus and Malachi. Malachi's an Irish laddie. Angus is a wee Highland boy. And they're basically living in the old town with their families. And because they're the kind of oldest sons, they're having to help support their mothers. Their fathers are no longer there. And they're helping their mothers and supporting their brothers and sisters by working. And at that time, the best money to get was over helping build the new town. So Malachi and Angus are builders, they're labourers, working in the new town, hustling away, trying to help build things. But these two lads had a dream. They had grand and lofty ideas. They wanted to be sedan chair runners. Now, if you're unfamiliar with a sedan chair, that is basically one of those weird contraptions, you know, the box with the two guys at either side with the poles and they run back and forth. And a person of wealth sits in it as they get carted about, kind of like a taxi of its day. So these laddies wanted to be sedan chair runners, but there's a problem. You need money. Yep. To get a sedan chair, you need to pay one of the cabinet makers of the old town. And that's a lot of money. That is pretty much something beyond their means. So Malachi and Angus, they keep working away and they've got their dreams until one day they get a wee idea. Why don't we ask our boss if we can borrow the money? That way we can run two businesses. We can work as sedan chair runners and we can work as labourers, making double the money, and we'll be able to pay them back a lot quicker while supporting our families. And it made common sense. So they went and spoke to their boss. But he was one of those miserable guys. He was one of those nasty pieces of work. And when he heard these lads and what they wanted to do, and of course he was insulted that they thought they could rise so high, that he basically refused to give them any money. But to make matters worse for their cheek at the fact that they asked for a loan, he fires them both. And that's a problem, because Malachi and Angus are now out of work. They can't get a job. He's spread the word around all the labouring guys not to hire them because they're just troublemakers. He's spread malicious rumours. And now our two boys are miserable. They're thinking, what are we going to do? How are we going to look after our dear mas? And how are we going to look after our siblings? This is not going to happen. How are we going to get by? So they sit and they think long and hard. And Malachi, well, he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room. So he comes up with a wee plan and he says, look, Angus, I've got it. We will rob our old boss, right? We'll break into his house, we'll steal the money, but no, wait, because we're good boys, we'll rob him as if it's a loan. So we'll keep paying back the money without him realising we've taken, you know, I'll work out fine, says Malachi. And of course, Angus, after a wee bit of this and that, is persuaded into it. So the two lads head down into the grass market of Edinburgh to see where their boss lives to break in. And that's when they realise the problem. You see, Edinburgh has all these towering tenements, and their boss lives a fair whack up one of them. And there's no way they can get in because he's got a bit of money. There's actually security on some of the doors of these, so they can't just sneak by. There is no way for them to break in. What they need is they need to be able to climb up the side of the building. They realise they need a rope. Perfect, right? So we need to get a rope, and what we'll do is we'll scale the building, we'll break in, we'll get the money, and basically we'll buy our sedan chair, and then we'll pay him back. He won't even know, and it's like a loan, but we're stealing him for a loan. It's all very straightforward, says Malachi, and Angus by this point is on the roller coaster ride. But now the boys need a rope. So a rope's expensive. They can't buy one. So now they beg. They plead. They go to all their friends in the building works and ask if they can borrow a rope. But the word's out on these lads. And everyone thinks they're no good. So nobody's willing to take a chance letting these boys take a rope because they think they will only get it back. So now Malachi and Angus They're just out of luck. And they're just down in the dumps, wondering what they're going to do. So they sit down on the steps of St. Giles Cathedral. And they just sit there feeling miserable for themselves in the heart of the old city of Edinburgh, wondering what to do. And Malachi looks behind him and he says, you know what, Angus, we're here. We may as well go into the church and pray. I mean, what have we got to lose? Nothing. We may as well ask the big one if he can help. So they go into the beautiful St. Giles Cathedral and they walk down towards the pulpit and they get Great Cross and they're looking around at all the beautiful, you know, stained glass window, all the beautiful wooden pews, all the gold crosses and religious icons that basically could pay for half the city. And they go up to that pew and they drop to their knees and they put their hands together and they lower their heads to pray. And just at that moment, the great bell of St. Giles Cathedral starts ringing. And ringing and ringing and ringing. And Malachi is up on his feet like the gunshot, the starter pistol at a race. He's on his feet and he's dancing about and he's looking at Angus and he's saying, the bell, Angus, the bell. And Angus hasn't got a clue what's going on. Malachi drags him out front of St. Giles and round the side and he keeps repeating, the bell, the bell, the bell. Well, Angus eventually gets some common sense out of him, and Malachi explains the bell has a rope. The bell rope, how they ring the bell, it's got a great big rope. We could take that rope to break into our boss's house, get the money from the boss's house as a loan, buy our sedan chair, make the money back and repay him the money without him really knowing. And basically no one will be the wiser and we will have our sedan chair and we'll be able to support our families. It's perfect. But Angus isn't happy about this because what Malachi's suggesting is we steal from the church. And both boys are religious, but Angus isn't happy. So it takes a fair bit of persuading for Malachi to basically browbeat Angus into agreeing to this. And they come up with a perfect plan. And that night, they put it into action. They sneak into the church just before it's closed. They hide in one of the corners and they wait for the church to be sealed up and all the staff to go to their quarters and settle down for the night. And when it's all peaceful and quiet, both the boys sneak out. They walk through the church, tippy-toeing towards the bell tower. They grab the bell tower door and they turn the handle and it's locked. Oh no, the bell tower's locked to get to the steps, which would allow them to walk up to get the rope from the bell. What are they going to do? And to make matters worse, it's one of those old bell towers that you can actually walk into. And you can look right up at the bell and the rope is literally there to touch. And both boys are now just, they're broken. They're looking at this rope. They're looking up at the bell. They can see through some of the windows the steps heading up and they can't get near them. And that's it. It's all over for them. What are they going to do? And as Malachi looks up at the bell, looking at the rope, it comes to him. Angus, I've got it. Hold on to the rope for me. Hold it tight so it doesn't move and the bell doesn't ring. I'm going to shimmy up the rope, okay? And when I get to the point, what I'll do is I'll cut the rope and basically we'll basically have rope that we can break into our boss's house and steal the money as a loan and, you know, buy our sedan chair and pay him back. And of course, Angus at this point is not even thinking. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. And he grabs the rope and up like a whippet goes Malachi. And when he reckons he's up there about the right length they need, pulls out his knife and from underneath him, he cuts the rope. Now, it's a big, thick bell rope and he hasn't warned Angus for fear of waking any of the staff. So Angus is standing there when all of a sudden Angus feels the rope go a wee bit loose, looks up to see about 30, 40 foot of thick rope pummeling down on him. And poor Angus is knocked near unconscious at the bottom of the bell tower, covered in rope. But now, up there, we've got Malachi dangling on the rope, thinking to himself, how am I going to get down? How am I going to get down from here? And then it comes to him. If I just cut the rope above my hands, I'll be able to get down. It's perfect. And that's what he does. He takes his knife and he starts slicing the rope above his hands. And when he cuts through the rope, of course, he plummets down the bell tower. And at this point, young Angus has just managed to get himself onto his feet, a wee bit dazed and confused, looks up to see Malachi plummeting towards him and crash. Both boys impact. There's cries, there's moans, there's a ruckus. Because of the movement, the bell is now ringing, and the whole of Edinburgh has been woken up when there should be no bell. All the staff of St. Giles are now up, wondering what's going on. The great doors of the cathedral are being banged from the town watch, and the doors are opened, and in come the watch, and all of them find at the bottom of the bell tower these two lads groaning and moaning in agony, entwined in rope. Well, Malachi and Angus are dragged out of St. Giles Cathedral, and thankfully their destination isn't that far. It's the Tolbooth prison, which sits in the square just in front of the cathedral, and there they're placed in the most miserable conditions, awaiting trial. And when their day of trial comes, both are rather saddened to see who the judge is. If memory serves, his surname was Melville, and he was a reputed hanging judge. He took great pleasure in hanging everyone and anyone for anything. And while he did this, he had 2 bottles of port that he would basically drink, sip, and indulge as he pronounced sentence. And he sat there glowering at these 2 men as the prosecution laid its case out about these delinquents, these degenerates, these criminals against the church. But thankfully for the boys, they had a gentleman called Henry Coburn on their side, a very young but very eloquent and very quick-witted lawyer. And when he played out his defense, it was said he told and regaled the audience with the story of what had happened, very much the story that I have told you. And at the end of it, the whole jury and everyone who's in the courtroom were in fits of laughter at the stupidity of these 2 young men. Well, Melville seemed unswayed. He just was scowling. He took a sip of port. He put on his black cap for sentencing, and then he stared at the boys and then pronounced sentence. A sentence which nobody expected, and it began a bit like this. I will not put the city of Edinburgh and its people to the expense of hanging either of you, as it is so obviously clear that you will manage to do it to yourselves one day. And what he did is he passed a very simple sentence, similar to what we call community service to this day. The boys had to work off their debt. They had to pay for a new rope for St. Giles, and they had to work around the city, which, because they were hard-working lads and felt awfully guilty, Malachi and Angus did at quick pace. And both boys paid off the rope and paid off their debts to society. And it was said that on the last day of paying off their debt, they received an envelope. And in that envelope was a very curious note to say, go down to one of the cabinet makers on the grass market. When the boys arrived there, waiting for them was a sedan chair. A benefactor had donated this gift to them, and they have no idea who it was. But from that day on, Malachi and Angus became 2 of the hardest working sedan chair runners in Edinburgh, creating a tiny empire for themselves and being able to support and look after their mothers and their siblings till the end of their days. Until the end of their days, they never knew who actually was the benefactor, but a curious thing did happen on the first day. Pretty much their first ever customer was none other than Melville, the hanging judge. And at the end of the journey, the boys were a bit like, oh, we can't charge this man. No, 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 no. We won't ask him for any money. But it became very obvious to them from the first journey to the very last journey that he took with them, which was many, that he had no intention of ever paying for his fare and no intention of ever talking to the two boys while they travelled. Melville, to this day, we believe, was the benefactor, and all he was really looking for was a free ride around Edinburgh till the end of his days. But, as we say in Edinburgh, you just never know. It's a curious city with curious history, and nothing quite makes sense. But this is a true story. It's called The Bell Ringers. It is one of those accounts that did happen. As ridiculous as it sounds, the documents are in the legal areas of Edinburgh and in the what we call the National Archives of Scotland. So there you go. That is the Bell Ringers of Edinburgh. Thank you very much, folks. Ooh, so I think we have time for one very quick story. And I think I'm going to tell you a ghost story. Yes. Okay. Because we've only got a few minutes left. Very quick, but most terrifying. This is actually the most terrifying ghost story in Edinburgh. Okay. I want you to be ready for this, folks. I want you to be prepared. If anyone's of a nervous disposition, please get behind the couch. Edinburgh is a ghostly city. It's a very haunted city. It's dubbed the City of the Dead on many occasions. And basically that's due to the graveyards. It's due to what we call the underground city, which is subterranean vaults. Now, in one of those subterranean vaults, oddly enough, we built some bars, some taverns. And one of those taverns is known as Whistle Binkies. And Whistle Binkies has a terrible, terrible problem with ghosts. A couple of ghosts that haunt it. One is called the Watcher. Yeah. Can anyone guess what he does? Yeah. He basically watches you. He'll sit at the bar and stare at you, a grey-clad figure. They believe he was one of the security watchmen from the old vaults that were there. And basically, he'll just come in and out of the bar and just stand and stare at people. And it's rather unnerving. But the second ghost is the one that causes the problems. And he is called the Imp. Now, the Imp is fantastic. He is mischief and mayhem and trickster. All the shops along the bridges, they have problems. Items being moved, jewellery being taken, and not by shoplifters. Things getting moved about in the middle of the night, and just general chaos. But Whistle Binkies suffers the worst, because he torments the staff in this bar. And one of his favourite things to do is torment them when they go down to the cellar. You know, at the end of the night, when it's dark and the bar's empty, and you've got to, if anyone's worked in a bar, you've got to do all the stuff like brushing and mopping and all that. Well, the Imp loves the cellar. In fact, quite often what will happen is they'll go in, the door will slam shut behind them, the lights will go off, and literally the staff member will be in terror, trying to pull, kick, batter the door, and it will not budge. If anyone hears it from above, they'll come down and they'll do everything to open the door, and it just won't budge until the Imp's had his fun. And when he's happy, when he's realized that you're terrified beyond belief, all of a sudden the light will just flick on. The door will just swing open on its own accord, as if nothing was stopping it. And the staff member will run for their very lives out of there. Well, one night, the manageress had finished the shift. She got her staff tidying the bar. Everyone was doing their duties, but she knew it was her turn to go down to that cellar. And she hated it. She knew all the stories. She'd had a few things happen. It was just one of those horrible things that none of the staff liked to do. But she realizes there's a way to get around this. She'll have a treat prepared for her after. So she gets from her bag a sandwich, a packet of potato chips, and an orange, and she leaves it on the bar. It was the remnants of her lunch, and she'll have it as a wee treat after she's done the cellar. So she grabs the boxes of empties and heads down. She brushes, she mops, she changes the kegs that need changed, she gets the refills, put the empties away, all the time looking in the shadows, all the time terrified, watching that door, ready to run if it even moves. And after about 20 minutes of working down there, she's done all the tasks. And she grabs what she needs and she runs out that door. And as soon as she's beyond that door, the biggest sigh of relief ever. She heads up to the bar, realizing she's got away with it. The imp is obviously somewhere else causing mischief. She heads up to the bar, she puts all the bottles and that on the bar, and she goes, it's time. I'm going to have my wee break. I'm going to have that wee treat that I left out. And she heads over to where she left her sandwich, her potato chips, and her orange. And as she gets closer, she freezes. Her eyes go wide, her mouth opens. She can't believe her eyes. She starts trembling and shaking. She has never seen anything like it because there on... Sorry, it's terrifying. There on the bar where she left it. It's too much. She sees her orange has been peeled. Yeah, I know. That is a genuine ghost story, folks. I love this story because it's been published in multiple ghost story books. It was actually put in the newspaper for 4 weeks running. It must have been a really slow week, but it's called The Imp and the Orange, and it is a genuine Edinburgh ghost story. And I love telling it because it's so ridiculous. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for joining me for these this short session of stories. Do remember, more acts are coming up, and we all have our tip jars. So if you enjoy the shows, do have a look at the not the comments, the information about our show, where you'll see our PayPal tip jars, our eTransfer tip jars. If anyone donates over $15, I will send you a copy of my Scottish Bedtime Stories download CD, a collection of gruesome and grisly Scottish tales. Definitely not for the faint of heart, definitely not for the youngsters, but anyone who's donating over $15 gets that. I believe The Imp and the Orange is on that, as well as another collection of bits of history, some gruesome and grisly stories, resurrection tales, hangings, cannibals, you know, just the delightful things about Edinburgh and Scotland. It's just how it goes. But I want to thank you all for joining. It's been a pleasure. Hopefully you've enjoyed the stories as well, folks. I should have checked who was up next, because that's really bad of me. As a guy who works professionally as a host and MC, I should have checked the next performer to let you know who's coming up next. But I'm sure it'll be a fabulous musical act or entertaining act if it's not music. And I hope you hang about. The showcase is on for about another 4 or 5 hours, something like that. Something we do every Sunday on the Socially Distant Fest. Do enjoy, and if you are donating and tipping, remember the guys, the admins who do this, they also have a Patreon account, so you can also donate to them for all their hard work. But thank you for joining. It's been a pleasure. My name's Calum Lykan. I am a Scottish storyteller. Follow me on YouTube or Facebook. It's been a pleasure, and enjoy your evening.